I thought I was the kind of person nothing unusual ever happened to. I worked, I went to the gym sometimes, I meal prepped on Sundays and forgot about it by Wednesday. I drove the same route to the hospital every morning, parked in the same spot on level 3, and bought the same medium coffee from the cart near the elevator. That was my life. 31 years old, pediatric nurse. Two-bedroom apartment in Columbus, Ohio that I shared with nobody except a spider plant named Gerald. That Tuesday in March started exactly like every other Tuesday. I was on my lunch break eating a turkey wrap at the nurse's station, scrolling through nothing on my phone when it rang. Unknown number. Ohio area code. I almost didn't answer. Is this Mada Holloway? Yes, I said, still looking at my wrap. This is Greenfield Elementary calling. We have a student here. Theo and his emergency contact card lists you as his mother. We've been trying to reach you since this morning. He hasn't been picked up and school ended 2.5 hours ago. If we can't reach a guardian in the next 30 minutes, we'll have to contact Child Protective Services. I set down the wrap. I'm sorry, I said. Can you say that again? She repeated it slower this time, like she thought I hadn't heard. I'd heard every word perfectly. The problem was in my hearing. Mom, I don't have a child, I said. I think there's been a mistake. My name is Mara Holloway, but I'm not anyone's mother. A pause. Then, your name and phone number are listed as the primary emergency contact for Theodore Holloway, age 6. Your address on file is 404040 Fort Wentworth Drive. That was my address. The wrap sat on the counter getting warm. Someone walked past me with a cart. I could hear my own heartbeat. I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said. I don't know why I said that. I could have said I'd never heard of Theodore Holloway. I could have said, call the police right now because something is very wrong. Instead, I told my charge nurse I had a family emergency, grabbed my coat and keys, and drove to an elementary school I'd never been to in my life. Greenfield Elementary was 15 minutes from the hospital, a squat brick building with a chain link fence and a painted mural of sunflowers along the front. I sat in the parking lot for a second with the car still running. A 6-year-old, named Theo, with my last name. I went inside. The front office smelled like construction paper and someone's microwave lunch. The woman at the desk looked up with visible relief when I said my name, and then she led me down a short hallway to a room with 3 plastic chairs and a water fountain. There was a boy sitting in the middle chair, feet dangling because they didn't reach the floor, backpack on his lap. He had dark blonde hair, a small nose. He was wearing a green shirt with a dinosaur on it, and he was looking at a book, or pretending to, and when the door opened, he looked up. His eyes were grey. My eyes are grey. I've been told my whole life that grey eyes are rare, that people notice them. My grandmother had them. My mom has them. I inherited them like a hand-me-down. This boy had the exact same eyes. I stood in the doorway, and I did not move for what felt like a very long time. Theo, the office woman said gently, your mom is here. He looked at me. Not with fear, not with confusion, with something that I can only describe as careful hope. The way a kid looks when they've been waiting so long they're afraid to believe the waiting is over. Hi, he said. Hi, I said back, because it was the only word I had. The office woman left us and I sat down in the chair next to him. My hands were in my lap. The fluorescent light above us hummed. How long have you been here? I asked. Since 2:15, he said. Mrs. Carpenter let me have a granola bar. That was nice of her. It was peanut butter, he said. I don't really like peanut butter, but I didn't say anything because she was trying to be nice. Something moved in my chest. I pressed it down. Theo, I said carefully, who usually picks you up from school? He looked at his backpack. My dad. Okay. And do you know where your dad is today? He shook his head slowly. He dropped me off this morning, he said. He said he'd pick me up. He always picks me up. His voice was steady, the way kids' voices go when they're working very hard not to cry in front of a stranger. I told the office woman I'd take him home. She asked me to sign a form. I signed it with my name, Mara Holloway, next to where it already said Mara Holloway in type letters. My hands weren't shaking. I don't know why they weren't shaking. In the car, Theo buckled himself in without being asked. He put his backpack on his lap and looked out the window. Do you know my dad? He asked. I merged onto the main road. What's your dad's name? Ryan, he said. Ryan Holloway. Ryan Holloway. I gripped the steering wheel. I knew exactly who Ryan Holloway was. We had dated for 2 years. We'd broken up 4 years ago, maybe 4.5 after I found out he had been lying to me about things I didn't want to think about anymore. I had ended it clean. Blocked his number, moved apartments, tried very hard to act like those 2 years were a chapter I'd already closed. I did the math in the car at a red light while Theo watched a construction crew on the side of the road. 4.5 years ago, Ryan and I were still together. And this child was 6. My throat felt very tight. I drove Theo to my apartment because I didn't know where else to go. I didn't know his home address. I didn't know if he had grandparents in the area or an aunt or anyone else whose number I could call. All I had was his name and his grey eyes and the fact that Ryan had put me on his emergency contact card and then apparently vanished. Theo walked into my apartment and looked around with the careful inspection of a child who is taking in information without commenting on it. He noticed Gerald. You have a plant, he said. That's Gerald. He nodded like that was a reasonable name. Then he sat on the couch and unzipped his backpack and pulled out a folder with a rocket ship on it. I have homework, he said. Okay, I said. It's just reading, he said. I'm a good reader. I believe you. I went to the kitchen and called Ryan. His number went straight to voicemail. The voicemail box was full. I called twice more. Same thing. I stood at my kitchen counter and looked through the pass-through at this little boy doing his reading homework on my couch, legs crossed, lips moving slightly as he read, and I felt something I didn't have a word for. It wasn't anger yet. It wasn't panic. It was something underneath both of those, something cold and very still, like ice forming over water. That night, Theo ate the only kid-friendly thing I had, a box of mac and cheese I'd bought for a sick day and never opened. And I made up the couch with a blanket that had little anchors on it, and he said it was cool and went to sleep without complaint. I sat on the floor in my bedroom and looked up Ryan Holloway. His social media was still there. He hadn't blocked me. I'd blocked him. I unblocked him to look. His last post was 10 months ago, a photo of Theo at what looked like a birthday party, cake and balloons, and Theo grinning with both front teeth missing. Ryan's face wasn't in the picture. The caption was just a balloon emoji. His profile listed his job as a contractor. No relationship status. I searched his name plus Columbus, Ohio. Nothing useful. I searched the address listed on Theo's school forms. I'd photographed the emergency contact card before I left the school office, because something in me knew I'd need it. The address was a rental property in Westerville, about 12 miles from me. I drove there the next morning, early, before Theo woke up. I left a note on the coffee table that said, "Good morning. Help yourself to cereal. I'll be right back. Gerald likes to be talked to." Then I felt strange about the Gerald part and almost crossed it out and then left it. The house in Westerville was a beige colonial with the rental company's lockbox on the door. I knocked. Nothing. I knocked again. A neighbor came out to walk her dog, and I smiled like I was meant to be there. I called the rental company from the parking lot. They wouldn't give me any information. I explained that I was trying to locate a tenant named Ryan Holloway in connection with his minor child. They said they'd have someone call me back. That call back never came. When I got home, Theo was eating cereal at my kitchen table and reading the back of the box with the same focused attention he'd given his homework. He'd poured the milk himself and only spilled a little, which he'd wiped up. "You talked to Gerald," I said. He looked guilty. "A little. He likes it," I said. "He grows better when people talk to him." Theo looked at the spider plant on the windowsill. "Does it actually work?" "Plants respond to sound vibrations," I said. "That's real science." He considered this. I told him about dinosaurs. "Perfect," I said. I called my sister that afternoon while Theo watched a nature documentary. I stood in the bathroom with the door closed and kept my voice low and told her everything. There was a long silence when I finished. Mara, she said. What? I know. This is insane. I know. Did you call the police? I had thought about it. I had thought about it a lot. But every time I reached the point of actually dialing, I stopped. Because what was I going to say? I have a child at my apartment. He's not mine. His father put my name on the emergency contact card and now the father is gone. And then what? Theo goes into the system, into a foster placement with strangers, at least for a few days, maybe longer. I'd seen enough as a pediatric nurse to know what that looked like for a 6-year-old who was already scared and pretending not to be. Not yet, I told my sister. Mara, I'm trying to find his father first. Mara, this man put your name on official school documents without your consent. He listed your address. He has your last name. He has my last name because we were together when he was born, I said. And then I stopped. Because I hadn't said that out loud before. I'd done the math, but I hadn't said it. My sister was quiet. He might be yours, she said carefully. I would know if I had a child, I said. But even as I said it, a different thought came in behind it, the kind of thought you try not to look at directly. I had been sick. The winter we broke up. A bad flu that turned into a respiratory infection. I'd been on antibiotics and then stronger antibiotics. I'd been exhausted and feverish for almost 3 weeks. Ryan had been attentive in the way that made me trust him. Bringing me soup, making sure I took my medication. There was a week I barely remembered. I chalked it up to the fever. I did not want to finish that thought. I found a private family law attorney through a colleague who'd gone through a custody situation the previous year. I called from the hospital parking lot on my lunch break, the second week. The attorney's name was Patricia Webb. She was in her 50s, quick and precise in the way of someone who had spent decades listening to people in crisis and needed them to get to the point. I told her everything. She asked me 3 questions. Did I have documentation that my name was on the school records without my consent? Yes. Did I have any communication from the child's father? No. Had I taken a DNA test? No. Take the test, she said. That's the foundation of everything. If you're not biologically related to this child, your situation is simpler. You're impersonated, which is fraud. If you're biologically related, your situation is more complicated, but you have rights. Either way, you need to know. I ordered a home DNA kit online. It arrived in 3 days. Theo was playing a game on the tablet I'd bought him. I told myself it was just practical, to keep him occupied. Not because I was starting to rearrange my life around a 6-year-old. And I asked him if I could take a swab of his cheek. I explained what it was, that it was just some cells from his mouth, like a superpower scan. He held very still while I did it. He was good at holding still. Will it hurt? He'd asked beforehand. Not at all, I said. Okay, he said. Then I'm not scared. He said it like a decision, like something he was choosing. The results came back 8 days later. I opened the email in the hospital bathroom. My hands were shaking this time. Theo was my son. I sat on the floor of the hospital bathroom for a while. Not crying, just sitting. A nurse knocked on the door after a few minutes and I said I'd be right out, and I was. I saw every patient on my rounds that afternoon. I did my job. I went home and made pasta and watched Theo eat it and thought about all the things I did not know and all the things I suddenly did. I went back to Patricia Webb with the results. She helped me file for emergency guardianship. She helped me understand that Ryan had committed multiple legal violations, fraud on official documents, using my identity without consent, and the thing I still couldn't look at directly, whatever had happened the winter I was sick. I reported it to the police. I made a statement. It took 3 hours and I drank 2 cups of terrible coffee and answered every question they asked me. They found Ryan 6 weeks later. He was in Pittsburgh. He'd left Ohio without telling anyone. He had another relationship there, had been splitting his time for 2 years. When the detective told me this, I thought about the way Ryan used to get phone calls late at night and step outside to take them. I thought about all the things I'd explained away. He retained an attorney. There were hearings. There was a process, long and grinding and exhausting in the way that legal processes always are, full of forms and continuances, and days when nothing seemed to move. Through all of it, Theo went to the same school. I picked him up at 2:15 every day. He learned that Gerald did, in fact, seem to respond to conversation, and he began giving the plant daily briefings on the things he'd learned at school, delivered in a very serious tone. He liked grilled cheese and hated mushrooms and was reading above grade level and could name 17 different species of theropod dinosaurs and would do so without prompting if you gave him any opening at all. I learned that he talked in his sleep sometimes, that he still preferred to have the closet door open, that he woke up in a good mood immediately without the slow, grumpy emergence I'd always needed from sleep. He was not like me in that way. He was relentlessly cheerful in the mornings. He was exactly like me in almost every other way, including the way he went very still and very quiet when something scared him. Instead of reaching out, the guardianship was granted. The custody hearing came 6 months after that. Ryan's attorney argued for visitation. He argued that Theo knew his father and that severing that relationship would harm the child. Patricia argued that Ryan had committed fraud against me, abandoned the child in my care without notice or consent, and had not made contact with Theo in over 7 months. The judge awarded me full legal and physical custody. Ryan was ordered to pay child support. He was not granted visitation at that time, though the door was left open for a future supervised arrangement if he completed certain requirements. I stood outside the courthouse after in the cold, and my sister hugged me for a long time. She'd come for the hearing. She'd been there every step. I didn't cry until we got to the parking garage where nobody could see me except her. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Are you really?" "I will be," I said, and I meant it. Theo was with my sister's husband when I got home. He had apparently spent the afternoon teaching the man about theropods, and the man, bless him, had listened to the entire thing. Theo ran to me when I came through the door with the unself-conscious speed of a child who doesn't yet calculate whether they should show how much they've missed you. I held on to him for an extra second. "Did it go okay?" he asked, his voice muffled against my shoulder. "Yes," I said. "It went okay." He pulled back and looked at my face with those grey eyes that were the same as mine and my mother's and her mother before her. "Good," he said. "Gerald missed you. I told him you'd be back, but I could tell he was worried." "Gerald was worried," I said. "He was drooping a little." "That's because I forgot to water him before I left." Theo considered this. "Oh," he said, "that makes more sense. But I still think he was glad you came home." I went to the kitchen and watered Gerald. Through the pasture, I could see Theo explaining something to my brother-in-law with tremendous enthusiasm, arms moving, voice rising on the important parts. A year ago, I was eating a turkey wrap at a nurse's station, thinking my life was predictable. I stood at the sink and watched him and thought, I did not choose this. None of the beginning of it was mine to choose. But every day since that first day in the school office, every single day, I have chosen it. I have chosen it. I have chosen him. I think that's what makes it real. I used to think being a mother was something that happened to you, something biological and automatic. I know now it isn't. It's something you decide in small ways every morning. It's staying when it's hard. It's learning what someone needs before they know how to ask. It's the closet door left open, the grilled cheese instead of mushrooms, the daily Gerald briefings taken seriously because he takes them seriously. I didn't get the beginning of his life. I intend to be there for the rest of it. I've thought a lot about the word choice since all of this happened. People hear Theo's story and they say things like, "You were so strong," or "What an amazing thing you did." And I understand why they say it. From the outside, it probably looks like a sacrifice. A single woman in her 30s who had her life arranged a certain way and then had it rearranged completely by someone else's dishonesty. What Ryan did was a violation. There's no softer word for it. He made decisions that were not his to make. And then he disappeared and left a 6-year-old in a plastic chair waiting for someone who didn't know he existed. But here's the thing I keep coming back to. Ryan's choices caught up with him. Not because the universe punished him in some dramatic way, but because that's just how it works. When you build something on lies, a life, a relationship, a whole secret arrangement, you are also building in the collapse. It's load bearing dishonesty. It will hold until it doesn't, and when it goes, everything goes with it. Ryan lost his son. He lost any version of the story where he was the good guy. He lost the chance to watch Theo explain theropods to a patient adult, or figure out that Gerald droops when he's thirsty, or wake up cheerful in the morning like someone who hasn't yet learned to brace for the day. Those are things Ryan gave away. I didn't take them. He handed them over the moment he decided his convenience mattered more than the truth. And I think about what it took to get through those months. Not the legal part, though that was its own kind of exhausting. The forms and the hearings and the continuances that felt like they'd never end. I mean, what it took internally. There were days I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot before my shift and just breathed, because breathing was the only thing I could control. There were nights Theo was asleep and the apartment was quiet, and I thought, I do not know what I'm doing. I'm a pediatric nurse, not a mother. I know how to care for children who belong to other people. I do not know how to be the person someone belongs to. But I kept going anyway. Not because I was certain. Because Theo needed someone to keep going and I was the person there. That's the thing about hard situations. They don't wait until you feel ready. They just arrive. And what you find out about yourself is determined entirely by what you do next. What I know now is that intelligence without action is just anxiety. I could have analyzed my situation forever, the legal risks, the emotional risk, the life I was rearranging. Instead, I signed the school form. I drove to Westerville. I called Patricia Webb. I ordered the DNA kit. One thing, and then the next thing, and then the next. That's not bravery as a feeling. It's bravery as a practice. And the moral piece, the part where I had to decide who I was going to be when it would have been easier to walk away, that's the part I'm most honest about when I think back on it. I could have handed Theo to the system and been legally in the clear. Nobody would have blamed me. But I would have known. You always know. The choices you make when no one is watching, when walking away is technically justified. Those are the ones that define you more than anything else. Theo told me last week that Gerald is his favorite thing in the apartment. I told him Gerald was already here when he arrived. He thought about that for a second. So Gerald was waiting for me too, he said. I don't know if that's true, but I think about the version of me who almost didn't answer that phone call, and I'm so glad she picked up.